Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality, and we're so glad you're here. This is a viewer and listener-supported podcast, so we greatly appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, share, and subscribe to any of the social media content platforms that you're using. And then if you go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, you can make a one-time donation, or with a monthly subscription, you'll gain access to our bonus content. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality Adventures. We are so excited today to have Jake Wells with us. We're doing an interview with Jake, and thanks, Jake, for coming on board with us at Spirituality Adventures.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. My videographer, Matt Cox, said, hey, you need to reach out to Jake Wells. And of course, I have, I know about The Voice, but it's not something that I've followed a whole bunch. But anyway, so then I said, well, yeah. So I started doing the research on you and listening to your music and trying to get a hold of all your discography and all that kind of stuff. And so much fun. I've thoroughly enjoyed your music.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't watch The Voice either, so it's definitely okay. Okay.
Anyway, I knew some of the main players, and I've watched enough to know what it's about. But at any rate,
yeah. So we were talking upstairs, and you said you really enjoyed the research part, and I'm very curious what was uncovered.
Well, it's a little tricky. I didn't get a lot, but here, let's talk about your background first. How's that?
Yeah.
Let's talk about where you were born, your growing up years, kind of, sound like you had a crazy musical family. Tell us a little bit about just give us a peek. Because a lot of our viewers, certainly they know The Voice, but I mentioned you to a bunch of my people who I thought would watch The Voice, and oh yeah, I remember him. So anyway, so some of our people are going to know you. Some people don't.
Many will not.
And they don't know they don't know your backstory either and how you got into music.
Yeah, I think my backstory is very, very interesting, at the least. I grew up in Florida. I was born in Pensacola, Florida, in the Panhandle. And I was born the third child of what became five. So I'm in the middle of five kids. And I grew up...
Brothers, sisters, both?
I have two brothers and two sisters. Oh, so it's actually really cool because I had the experience to be an older brother to a sister and a brother, and a younger brother to a sister and a brother.
Interesting.
So I feel like the dynamic of interpersonal, familial sort of structures was... the whole gambit was kind of reached in that way. I grew up in the way that I put it in the past has been an extremist sect of Christianity, one that you'll be very familiar with. So I was a independent, fundamental, Bible-believing Baptist.
Yes. Is that right? Mm. I know that world.
You know it well. Yeah. Yeah, we both, when you were speaking upstairs, and you're like, do these words mean anything?
Right.
I'm like, no,
I know it all too well, right?
I only don't know the ones that I've worked very hard to forget.
Yeah. Holy crud.
So I grew up in the church, man. And both of my grandparents were Baptist, preachers, and, started churches. My dad was, music director, at churches at multiple places. And yeah, so I grew up in the church. My family is all very musical. My dad has a master's degree in vocal performance, and that was really specifically geared towards church, geared towards the church world.
Yeah.
And so when I was 6 or 7 years old, my family started, we would sing gospel music in the church, and then we would go to nursing homes and sing in the nursing homes, and really cute kind of, this young family that's all has beautiful voices and can harmonize together. And we would go and sing hymns in these nursing homes. And then at one point, my parents decided that the Lord had called him to evangelize. And so we bought my dad bought a tour bus, and my family toured around the country singing gospel music in Baptist churches for, nearly 6 years. So that was from, like 8 to 13.
Yeah. You talking like Bill Gaither gospel kind of stuff?
Exactly like that.
Exactly like that.
Yes.
Okay.
That.
My dad, who is 86 right now, and he loves Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, and old gospel music, like the quartet, the old style gospel quartet. So I grew up listening to Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley,
And old school.
and then, like old gospel quartet stuff. So anyway.
It's that's my child, like Bill Gaither, the Gaither vocal band. That's my childhood. Those are my roots musically.
Yeah.
So it was weird. I was on a tour bus from like 8 to 13 ish, and, wild, really, really wild. The implications of like what that brings is insane. And we can get into that, but from there.
Yeah, because you don't think about gospel tour buses being wild.
And maybe I don't mean it like that.
You guys bring the jack out at night, and
not quite, not quite, man.
All right.
But after that, my dad was invited to help start a church here in Kansas City, downtown in 2008, and so we moved to Kansas City, got off the road. And kind of dived into this church. I guess the full synopsis is Dad started a church in Kansas City as a music person. We do that for a few years. My mom gets very ill. A lot of financial pressure and stress. Some breakdown happens at the church between my dad and the head pastor. My dad is everything but forced to resign. And so my dad resigns while my mom is sick, and he's working at like Chipotle at this point just to try to pay bills. So we moved to Colorado so my mom can be closer to her twin, because we were under the impression she was very liable to pass away. And so the idea was, get her kind of closer to her twin sister. We moved to Colorado.
The whole family, all 5 siblings?
No, the older 2 siblings stayed behind at that time. So, which was really weird for me, because I went from being the middle child to being kind of the oldest in the house. And we went from classic suburban home, musical home with all these instruments and things that I, really gave a lot of identity and a lot of outlet for me, kind of like evaporated. And I found myself in a trailer park, in Colorado, in some like cow town in Colorado.
Where did you move to in Colorado?
Greeley.
Okay. Cause I'm a huge, that's my favorite. That's my go-to state for retreats. I love the high mountains. I still mountain bike and rock climb and all that kind of stuff. So I have lots of history in that state, and
it's such a beautiful place.
So Greeley's on the Eastern Front, for those of you who don't know, and not too far away from Fort Collins, Colorado.
Yep, 45 minutes,
little north of Denver.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I guess just, and I'll speed it up. So the whole synopsis is basically, we moved to Colorado. My dad, we're trying to make it work, money. I finish high school, study a year in Colorado at the University of Northern Colorado. I studied music composition, music technology with a minor in philosophy.
Nice.
Upset. Yeah. And, after 2 semesters, I realized that was probably a terrible use of my financial, probably a terrible financial decision for myself. And so I dropped out. I moved to Fort Collins, worked for a couple of years, realized that I was not interested in the in what I was doing. You know, I was like serving in restaurants, managed a deli, and kind of just found myself like, shit, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm kind of like making money, more money than I need. So I'm like buying drugs and alcohol and like just like going nuts at like 19 years
Off
old.
the rails.
Yeah, man, just exploring everything.
So I did that twice in my life.
And
Once when I was young, once recently. So
Yeah.
anyway.
yeah. And I was like, this isn't working. I've got bigger things to do than this. I can feel that. And so I kind of sold like 70% of everything that I owned, you know, just gave away a lot of my shit, and took a guitar and my dog, and me and my little brother went hitchhiking, and we hitchhiked for a couple months. From Fort Collins, we did the whole West Coast and then back, and wild kind of adventure. And then when I came back,
Man, this is like, you remember Into the Wild?
yeah.
Yeah. It's like-
Supertramp. What is it?
Yeah.
Alexander Supertramp.
Right.
Yeah.
I think his last name, what, McCandless? Chris, am I getting that name right? Anyway.
I've read
Yeah, Into the
I
Wild.
remember.
Eddie Vedder did the whole soundtrack
Yeah.
on that movie. It was
So
amazing.
good. So
stuff.
good.
I know. It's one of my favorite
Dude,
movie
Eddie Vedder.
soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, Eddie Vedder's voice is
so you're
cool.
hitchhiking. Like
Hitchhiking.
you went the West Coast? Then did you come?
Yeah,
you
did
go
the
back?
whole 101. Yeah, so from Fort Collins, we went north, and then Portland, then Seattle, then all the way up to Westport, Washington, which is the top northwest corner of the United States, and then down the whole 101 to Los Angeles, and then kind of back up a different route. You know, we wanted to see different things, but back up, and eventually back to Fort Collins.
Yeah. Did you keep a journal?
I had the intention to. In the my brother bought me a journal, dude, and he buys it for the trip. And in the middle, he writes this like beautiful, you know, like letter to me, and it was really special. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna journal every day. And the very first entry on the journal is, I think I've made a terrible mistake, because it took us like 5 hours to get our first ride, and we got like 20 miles north, found ourselves in a rest stop in like Cheyenne we're like, oh shit. I'm like sitting there, I'm like, I think I've made a huge mistake.
Oh, wow.
And then by the end of the second day, we were moving along.
There you go.
But no, I didn't
Wow.
journal every day. I tried to. I should.
Crazy.
There was some really interesting moments, but
Bet.
yeah, so I hitchhiked. That's really where I found my voice as a vocalist and as a songwriter, and as a musician. I think in general was on that trip. I lost a lot of the fear around being seen and being heard on that trip. You know, because I brought the guitar as a way to busk and make money so that I could buy food. And the experience of being hungry and having like one method of making money, and that being music, like all of this fear around singing or being perceived as like being judged or whatever just kind of like flew out the window. And I was like, no, I'm going to sing, you're going to listen, and I hope you give me a buck, you know? And so
you're like live on the corner somewhere. Is that what you're doing with a hat out?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And yeah, and so we did that, got back to Fort Collins, kind of fell in a big slump after I got back. It was weird. I went from like managing this grocery store at like 19 to being back at, you know, being 20 years old, and I felt like I didn't have a place in society. I couldn't figure out what I was doing. I couldn't figure out what was going on. You know, I felt like I had just lived with a bunch of homeless people for like a couple months, and my ability to, like, it kind of messed up my ability to feel like a contribution, to feel valuable, especially in the workplace. So I kind of fell into a rut big time.
Were you back home?
This was in Fort Collins.
No, Fort Collins.
Back in Fort Collins.
Yeah, I love Fort Collins.
Beautiful place.
I love that city. I've mountain biked all around there.
Yep.
Done yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
cool place.
beautiful canyons and
Horseshoe, all that stuff.
Yeah, Horsetooth.
Horsetooth.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And and so there was this moment where I was like, man, the whole reason that I went hitchhiking was to try to be like, I need something new. I'm here to do something bigger than working for money, for giving my time to someone else, and that's it. Like, I need to do something bigger. And so I realized that I needed a change again. And so I moved from Fort Collins to Kansas City with the full intention of starting a career in music.
What year was this?
2016.
Okay.
Yep. So I've been here 5 years now, and I moved to Kansas City, started making music. For some reason, I found immediate immediate success with like the first song that I wrote, like immediately got notoriety, and
Roll Like Thunder.
Roll Like Thunder. Yeah.
Where did you record? Where'd you record that at? And then how did you go about releasing it? Because I'm just curious how it caught on so quickly. Because you, from a gospel singer, hitchhiker, to all of a sudden, just throw a song out there in the digital, the audio digital world, you know?
Yeah. It was, I recorded it in my bedroom, you know, and I can go back and I pulled open the file because I'm a music producer now. I'm a musician. I make music for a living now. And so I've gotten way better than I was.
Yeah.
I pulled open that file a couple months ago, and dude, you can hear cars passing on the street outside of my window. You can hear birds chirping, you know, I'm just in a bedroom, you know. There's a bass guitar on that song, and that's just my acoustic guitar, like octave pitched down, you know. It was like just a funny, I just made it work. But I recorded it. I was like, wow, this is really pretty. I showed it to my neighbor, and we were friends, you know, and they were like, this is incredible. You've got to send this to the radio. And I was like, okay, but I have no idea how to do that. So send it to the radio. They liked it and they played it. And so at this point,
like a local station?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Bridge.
Oh.
Yeah, Chris Hagirian over at The Bridge.
Serious. Yeah, I love The Bridge.
And all of a sudden I was like, wow, but this is working, or like something's happening. So I released it on Spotify. Spotify added it to one of their curated playlists that has a lot of followers. So in one day it got like 100,000 listens. Went to like 14 on the viral, like the US viral charts, you know, on Spotify, you know, all of a sudden. And I'm just like, what, you know?
Yeah.
But it gave me a lot of confidence. And so I kept writing, kept recording.
Let me ask you, because I love lyrics. Okay. So I'm kind of, I have to love the sound, but then I dive in, I stick with the lyrics.
Totally.
Like this line, roll like thunder, leak like fire.
Yep.
And then you kind of end with this refrain of, I've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. So it sounded like a relationship maybe that you let go, that you're like, but I think interesting I love the lines there. Roll like thunder, leak like fire. That's a cool.
Yeah. The line is not leak, it's lick. But I say it weirdly. So
I was looking on the,
someone led you astray.
Well, when I was looking on my iTunes, you know how you can pull up the lyrics.
Yeah.
It said leak. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no judgment.
So that makes more sense to me now.
Yeah, I was thinking fire lit.
Yeah, no, I kept thinking like, okay,
leak like fire. And you're like that. You're like, fire would leak.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
But anyway, so lick like fire makes way more sense to me now. So I was tracking. Yeah. Anyway, but still a relationship.
It was a relationship. I honestly, writing that song, I think, was me letting go. It was the process of me letting go of a relationship that was really meaningful to me. And you know, and like we were even talking about earlier, I think there was shame in there. And there was in the second verse where it's like, you know, I've made mistakes and we've all made mistakes, and kind of coming back to this thematic idea of, you know, roll like thunder, lick like fire, and fall like the rain. It was like, I was, you know, just trying to paint a picture of this grandiose sort of environment. Like because I felt like really huge. I felt all of these huge things, and I was trying to make sense of that and put words to it. And as the choruses happen, in one chorus, that kind of line, the roll like thunder and look like fire, is kind of a call, an invitation. And the other one is kind of this recognition of this other person being experienced by me as massive as thunder rolls, as totally as rain falls, as ferocious as fire licks. It's like that, and in the and then in another chorus it kind of has a whole different meaning, where it's like another invitation, where it's like, hey, we can all be that, like, this is life, like we can be this big. And it was a good writing process, and it really did help me move on from a relationship that was the first person that I ever really fell in love with, as a adolescent, finding adulthood. And I'm a wildly empathetic and emotional individual. And so those things stick with me,
Yes, I can relate. Think all the time, overthink everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so cool. So then I noticed, I have a couple questions about a couple of songs that you did after this one.
Okay.
Did you release you released some singles, right? And
Yes.
like 16, 17.
Yes.
And I noticed,
Yes.
the single Circle of Life and Born Again were, is it Jason Taylor? Jay Taylor? Who is, I might have got this name wrong.
You're fine. Jay Taylor. Is the artist name of my brother, Jordan.
Oh, see,
Jordan wrote.
I couldn't figure that out.
Yeah, totally fine. Taylor's his middle name.
Okay.
And Jordan wrote the song Born Again, which that song is so powerful.
This song, Born Again, is holy crud. We're going to have to talk about this
No, absolutely.
song a little bit. But Circle of Life did you write that with your brother? Mm-hmm. So Jay Taylor is Jordan Thompson's singer-songwriter name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now I understand.
Yeah. No, and it's not obvious. I think there's almost like some, it's not, I didn't no judgment from over here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so Circle of Life is beautiful too.
Thank you.
And then this Born Again song, let's chat about that a bit.
Let's chat. Yeah.
Because I always like to figure out if I'm hearing it the way you guys were writing it. And of course I know with music, it's always a part of the fun is the way other people hear it, right? And the way other people experience it. Mm-hmm. Not always the same as, I've preached sermons before where people get something out of them. I go, that wasn't even in my mind.
Right.
Right. It's like, are you listening to me?
But I won't. Yeah, but I'm not going to take it away from you.
Exactly.
Unless it's like an egregious sort of misunderstanding.
Exactly.
I really loved the part of your sermon where you said we should all do Xanax and drink. Like, no.
Combine it with alcohol.
Please,
it's amazing.
No, please. No.
Oh God. Yes.
And I want to pay, I want to make sure to pay all of the like homage and respect to my brother in terms of this, because Born Again was one that he wrote completely.
So I'm just going to say, if you haven't heard Born Again and you're listening to this, like hit pause, go listen to it, and then come back and listen to us talk about this.
Yeah.
Because the lyrics are just so amazing and so haunting,
The other thing is if you want, we can place that song in here,
We can do that.
We can do that. So,
right.
I mean,
and Matt can help us.
Yeah.
They pray in your the same. They pray in your holy name. They pray in your holy name, singing amen, amen. Never be the same. I'm walking without you. It's never been this way. I'm walking without you now, born again. They worship your holy name. They worship your holy name, singing amen, amen. Never be the same. They worship your holy name. They worship your holy name, singing amen, amen. Never be the same. I'm walking without you. It's never been this way. I'm walking without you now, born again. Amen. Amen. Singing amen, amen. Never be the same. Amen. Amen. Singing amen, amen. Never be the same. I'm walking without you. It's never been this way. I'm walking without you now, born
It's beautiful.
Let's do
isn't
that.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you probably, I'm curious what you think about it, but I imagine that you have a good grasp on what's happening.
So you want me to go first or you want to go first?
I want you to go first because if I go first, I'll be speaking for my brother with with just a broad context. If you go first, I can respond and be like, what would Jordan say?
Yeah. And if I'm completely off track, it's okay. Right. You guys let me know, 'cause I was curious, but so, I mean, a lot of people that are listening maybe have followed my story a little bit. And like the first blog I released back 9 months ago was called The Prodigal Pastor. And then the second blog was Deconstructing Fred. And in both of those blogs, I shared about how in 2019, I literally felt like an atheist. I felt like all my beliefs had been shattered. And I mean, here I was, I'd been a pastor and had been preaching for 40 years, right? And, you know, so I hear this song, Born Again, and the lyrics, they, not I or we, but they pray in your holy name. They pray in your holy name, singing amen. And then they worship your holy name. They worship your holy name. Never be the same. Never be the same. So this is these refrains with amen and beautiful harmonies.
Yeah.
And the acoustic guitar, whoever's doing acoustic.
That's Jordan.
Is it? Yeah. Beautiful. But then you go into this thing, that kind of blends into this, I'm walking without you. Mm-hmm. It's never been this way. Mm-hmm. I'm walking without you now, born again. So I'm thinking about my own deconstruction when I'm hearing this, and I'm thinking about this, to me, is ringing like this thing of deconstruction that we go through. So like now knowing your background, your church background and all that kind of stuff, I'm guessing that you guys, that maybe it's dealing with some kind of a deconstruction of faith, some kind of shattering of a faith perspective.
Yeah.
That then ultimately emerges into a new space that you don't maybe really know where it's going to take you, but it almost feels like you're born again in a new kind of reverse way of how people have used that term for so many ways.
Yeah.
I also thought it could be, I mean, sometimes people combine sort of these worship words about relationships. Could be you worship a woman, you love this woman, but then you leave her and you're never going to be the same, now you're born again because you're leaving her. You know what I mean? But anyway, I took it as a faith thing. And I've listened to it a dozen times just in a week, just echoing through my heart.
The song makes me cry, it's one of those ones that, I feel is connected to a really personal and deep rooted, I think, trauma in a sense for me. You're definitely spot on. And I think we should connect you with Jordan so you can have Jordan on, because I think you two would really get along well, and he could speak on the song for himself. But I think you're spot on inside of I think the idea was to use language that is, from my past and from his past, inside of this very religious world, use that language to try to communicate and express the relationship and the experience of moving from a relationship with Christianity, God, Jesus, Christ, the Lord, whatever, out of that, and then in a way, like finding your way back in, so much so that you can use that language again, and it have a deeper context for yourself, and I think. Yeah. I mean, it's such a beautiful piece, and I really don't want to, I don't want to speak on it in a way that isn't doing it proper justice. And I know Jordan would be able to speak on it so well.
I'd love to talk to him.
But it's one where we never really had to talk about it. He showed me the song, and I it immediately made me cry, just because it's almost, man, like this. Because for me, like, as a kid, I was obsessed with being good. I was suspicious that I was the second coming of Jesus. I think, as a lot of Christian kids are at some point, there's this idea where you're like, wait a second, I'm really good, and I'm trying really hard, and I don't think, for me, it was a very serious thing. We idolized the people in scripture that were good, and we wanted to be that, and I wanted to be that. And I thought to myself, like, I can do it better than anybody. I know that. Jesus can see inside of your mind and your thoughts, and even what you think about is liable to be judged, to be written down in the book and brought back up after you die. And why did you think that thought? And so I would police my mind, and just really, I was like really, really trying. And, man, like, it took on a lot of responsibility as a kid. It took on a lot. And there was this, inside of that song, there was almost this, like, I feel like I got to love myself. I got to give a little bit of compassion to a younger version of Jake that I historically have been maybe kind of hard on, have a lot of shame around, at the very least, and feeling like I wasted my childhood being concerned with whether or not I was going to die and go to hell, and out of that, I think breeded a lot of resentment towards my parents and my grandparents and my family, the culture that I grew up in, anyone and everyone who is a Christian, like a lot of resentment, because there was so much trial. Like, I was like, you're the fucking people that lied to me and took away my childhood because you were too afraid to say, I don't know, to say I'm uncertain. You were so afraid you needed Santa Claus Jesus to come in and promise you eternal bliss after you died, because you're afraid that your life doesn't mean anything. And so you shaped my child's brain, my childhood brain, and like all of this anger around that. And in a sense, I think the song is this sort of like release, this breath out that's like, I am disconnected from the thing that you think I'm talking about, and I'm connected to the thing that is actually that's real inside of what you're talking about. I'm walking without you, born again. And I don't know, it was maybe I shouldn't speak on it any more than that. I think Jordan would be the one to.
That's awesome.
Go further.
Well, so powerful. We might, if I just really encourage people to listen to that song. Beautiful, beautiful. One of my things with just what I've gone through here was, that we have to give space for people to go through these deconstructions. Right. And I don't think the church always does a good job with that. Like if a Job is actually in the church and he's he's lost everything, he's deconstructing everything, and it's like, hey man, I'm a pretty righteous dude, and all this shit's happening to me, right? Mm-hmm. I'm losing everything, mm-hmm. And God's justice is on the line. And where's he, and so there's actually the Psalms of Lament, mm-hmm. Actually, like this thing that Jesus quoted on the cross when he was hanging on the cross was, my God, why have you forsaken me? And then the second verse of that Psalm 22 is, I'm praying and you're not answering. Like it's a whole Psalm of ripping on God. Mm-hmm. Like mm-hmm. It's right there, mm-hmm. And that's the one that he quotes from the cross. And so I'm like, it's just, my thing is we've got to give space for people. of all ages, right? And I wouldn't have anticipated my own deconstruction at such a late point in life, but to give space for people to go through and question and doubt and re-examine and let it all fall apart, and then but be there for them in the midst of that, and then stuff comes back, and you don't. It's different when it comes back. It's different. So like I like that the fact that you said you could sing some of these things again, but it meant something different, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's a part of the process, and I think we all go through that at some point, at some time, and maybe even multiple times in life. I know here I am. I was one of the leaders in this community, and all of a sudden I go through this, and people don't know what to do with that. Like, well, God, is Fred saved anymore? I don't know. You know what?
Right. Yeah.
I thought about when I was listening to this song, I had an image pop into my mind. It's like I was on a boat, captain of the ship, and my ship hits the rocks and just shatters into 1,000 pieces, and it's just driftwood everywhere. And I'm out there just treading water, just about ready to drown, trying to grab a few pieces of boat, see if I can reassemble something and get myself back afloat. But that's kind of how I feel in the midst of all this thing. And I don't know what it's going to look like, and so this song hit me at that spot. And actually, I was listening to this song, and that metaphor came to my mind of my own life, of this wrecked ship with pieces of a wooden ship, right, with pieces of wood just everywhere floating.
Are you resentful to the church? I mean, to the people, to that. I mean, you said, is Fred saved anymore? Like,
so
is this
I was
okay?
more my anger and resentments. Have been, some of them were toward God Himself. Like, hey, I was a friend of God, and I prayed for years to, not screw up like this. I prayed millions of prayers, not to fall. And He doesn't answer, and He doesn't hear, and then I blow it, and then so that was a big one. So I had that going on, and then I certainly had certain resentments, certain individuals for sure, but at myself mostly. Like because I held a high standard. So like you were talking about you as a kid and your goodness as a kid, and so I would have thought, I lived had a high standard for myself, and then I crumbled. And I was mad at myself for crumbling. And so then the shame, like I was just overwhelmed with shame for a year, and still really not completely out of the woods on the shame component, all that stuff. So
sure,
I'm still a work in progress, my friend. Anyway, that's me. But that song hit me right where I've been the last 2.5 years. So isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's awesome.
How songs do that.
Yeah, I'm really glad that I'm really glad that it connected to you. It connected to me as well. What's funny is I was thinking about that song today. I haven't thought about it in a long time, and I was thinking about it today.
Interesting.
But yeah, a beautiful song. Yeah, man, I mean, that's so interesting. I think for me, I hear your story, and I kind of hear those experiences and kind of how you parse through it. Being angry at God, being angry at yourself, maybe having trouble differentiating between the two at points, I imagine. And
absolutely.
It's like, I don't know. I saw myself like having an emotional response almost for you, where it's like, just because it feels connected, it's like there are so many stories, I see so many people where it's like the church just like doesn't take care of people like at all, unless you're doing the thing, or unless you're willing to kind of bend over in a way and like repent for your like sins. And to me, like that from a really fundamental place, I just find that like very damaging, very cancerous, like very erosive, and like even looking at your story where it's like you you have these experiences, you find yourself inside of an addiction that effectively, would you say that is the catalyst of your marriage ending?
Wow. Yeah. I've talked about this in a really careful way, but my marriage had problems from the get-go. Like, I met my former wife when I was 19, dated a year and engaged a year, and, got married very young. And then very early, there were issues going on. So I think probably what happened was the Xanax and alcohol caused my self-discipline to erode.
Okay.
And then I acted out in ways that I probably would have acted out years ago had I not been so rigid in my belief system, if that makes sense to you.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you have these experiences, you have these addictions that, do just that, kind of like the discipline falls, whatever. It brings up, it's not to say that it is fully responsible for everything that happened, but my point is like all of these things happen, and the church, I have found, is so good at just saying that's wrong. Just saying that's wrong. You shouldn't drink alcohol. You shouldn't do Xanax. You shouldn't, you should, adhere to all of the sort of sanctity sort of points of your commitment to your wife, et cetera, et cetera. And they just go, that's wrong. And now we don't know what to do really to reconcile your badness, other than to say you're bad and it's okay because maybe it's okay because you can repent and be forgiven. And from my point of view, like nothing that you did was bad. Like I don't really think there's such thing as wrong. I think what you did caused exactly what it caused. And the only people saying it's bad are the people wishing that some other thing would have happened. But I don't see any law or any rule that says you can't become an alcoholic and drink yourself to death. There's no universal rule that says that. You're allowed to do that, and to call it, maybe this is way too much and too broad. But the thing that I'm like interacting with in my life at this moment is getting rid of this idea of good and bad. You can make the decision that you're going to make, the decisions that you're going to make, and they're going to have the consequences exactly as they have. But we're the ones that create meaning all of this, like inside of all of it. And I don't know. I imagine you and I may disagree about this, but I just find that there's these like the idea of sort of C.S. Lewis's sort of innate morality doesn't work for me. It just doesn't seem. It doesn't seem real.
Yeah, I think that living in this paradigm of, good and evil, one thing that I had to look at was like, you grow up as a Bible teacher and you listen to Paul and you have this old nature, this
die daily.
Yeah. And you're supposed to die to it. Well, I all the negative feelings that I had throughout my life as a pastor and in my marriage, I just tried to suppress them, tried to, whether it be my sexuality, which had no outlet, or whether it be, all these things that I just suppress, control my own stuff. And in the end, Xanax and alcohol help all of those negative things that I had suppressed for 40 years just blow out, right? Like blow out. Like I was off the rails, dude. And
I believe you.
And so there's a part of that I've had to look back on and go, okay, if you looked at all the pieces and all the way that I was dealing with all those people, it was gonna happen. It was actually gonna happen. You know what I mean? And then what would I have learned along the way if I'd had a different view of looking at those negative things that were a part of my life. If I had surfaced them, looked at them, talked about them.
When you say negative things, like I just want to make sure I understand that.
Like anger, lust, resentments, all these things that were going on in my life that, things that I was not supposed to let take over, but those things had something to say to me. And
yes.
So like so it's interesting to me, like in a lot of in the Christian tradition, it's like you die to those things. But there's other traditions that when you look at the shadow self, your shadow part, which we all, these contradictions, the things that we want to hide from people, there's a lot of traditions that look at those things and try to integrate your shadow self. Don't look at it as bad or evil or good or whatever, but just it's you. It's a part of you. How are you going to integrate that into your whole life? And
right.
To me, that there's things that I needed to do that with that I didn't. And because I was in this good, bad framework of even myself, even how I looked at my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own issues that were me. It was a part of me.
Yep.
So I was literally cutting myself off from a part of me because I was trying to die to me, a part of me that didn't need to be died to, but needed to be listened to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I don't know
if that makes sense or not. But
it totally makes sense. And I think
I wasn't expecting to get philosophical.
And I think the important distinction, I think the really important distinction inside of that sort of like the as you said, a good and evil, or the right and wrong, as I think about it, is like, of course, like there is such thing as a means to a goal. Of course, there's such thing as a means to like I think of good as like a function. It's not a rule, it's a function. What is good for you to stay the pastor of the church that you started was to not drink and do Xanax. What was good for you to be on this podcast doing this right now was for you to drink and do Xanax. Okay? What is good for the human race is the maximum amount of thriving individuals, human people, as possible. I think what is good for the earth is probably a mass exodus of all human life, since we are literally probably the most damaging thing to the earth. The idea of good and evil, the idea of good and bad is like kind of all function. And so in my mind, I'm like, I don't mind calling something good. I don't mind saying, hey, I have a goal to be a successful musician that makes my living creating music. What is good to the end of that goal is probably relatively rigid. It's probably somewhat defined. But to say that my goal to be a musician, your goal to be a podcaster or a preacher, or the earth to live, or the humans to thrive, those goals themselves have no grounding inside of anything that is universally true. Like in my opinion, obviously that kind of, I feel like, comes to this point of like, okay, is like, are humans special because we're conscious? Like, do we have something special? Because if so, then it's like, okay, then everything else in the universe is like one step of value below preserving conscious, sentient human people. And if that's the case, then yeah, we can maybe write rules about morality, but but that doesn't seem most likely to me.
So I've always loved science, and some of the books I've been reading lately are from neuroscientists.
Cool.
Neuroscience of the brain stuff. And David Eagleman is one of my favorites, but brilliant guys. And so, yeah, you get in, this is like when you deal with, like evolution and humanity and all these big questions. I love these questions. So it's fun to hear a musician, trying to wrestle with some of the deepest issues, like, what is ultimate reality, and what is good and evil, and where does all this lie, and how do humans, in this third rock from the sun, this incredible, think about all these planets out there in the universe that we don't think have life on them. And then you just got this third rock from the sun, and there's all this life just teeming on this planet. It's like, what the hell? How does this happen? It's this crazy thing just spinning around in the universe with life on it,
Have you ever heard the song? Did you know the artist Joe Pug?
No, I don't.
There's this artist called Joe Pug, and he has a song called Hymn 35, I believe it is.
Okay.
And if you get a chance, you should listen to it. But it was kind of diving into that idea. There's this line in the song that just says, it's like, I will do wrong, I have done wrong, there's nothing wrong with doing wrong. And it's this, like, in context of the song, is this really sort of profound idea of like, oh, there's nothing wrong with any of it. Like, I am responsible to create the thing that I think is most valuable, the thing that I want to prioritize. And
the journey to the dark side, whatever you want to call it, my own deconstruction and my own off the rails stuff, is like learning from all of that and seeing and having that emerge back into my life as something meaningful.
What do you mean? Like having like what emerge back into your life?
All of the stuff that I just went through. However people would want to label all of that.
Recreating it as...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like letting that come back into my life in meaningful, redemptive ways for me and for other people. And, this conversation wouldn't have been happening if I hadn't gone through that,
Dude, I think that's one of the most difficult, like, truths for me to get with, is that, like, unfortunately, what I have come to find out about myself, and I think it's true for everyone, is that the most painful experiences offer an opportunity for growth.
Absolutely.
That's fucking sucks.
I know.
Man.
I hate it.
I do too, man. And it's like,
because I barely feel like I'm going to get out of it.
Because if you really believe that, what are you going to do? Like, are you really, or like, why would you not become, is it masochist? Why would you not, if you really believed that, and if your pursuit was to grow as much as possible?
Yeah.
Like, it sucks to me there's something pitiful to me. This feels wrong about the idea that there is value in the most awful shit that you can imagine. There is value inside of your life, your ship breaking into driftwood, and you're drowning, and then here we are, and it's valuable, and it's just like, in my mind, I'm like, fuck you. I went through a breakup last year. That was by far the most meaningful relationship of my life. Really, like, my heart was broken. That's the archetype, etc. There's that song by The National where it's like, I am the television version of a person with a broken heart. And it's like, it felt like that, and I am 50 times cooler and a better person and more grounded and know myself better. And like, I am so much more Jake because of that. And yet still it's painful now, and I'm like that, there's something really sad to me about that. Kind of disappointing, kind of discouraging a little bit. And I know it's supposed to feel hopeful and redemptive, like, because in the moment where something terrible is happening, maybe you can think to yourself, I wonder what good is going to come of it. And it's like, how are you going to do that?
I'm still in that place where I hope something good comes. Like, for the longest time, it's just like, I was like, this is crazy.
Do you feel more
crazy?
Do you feel more connected to yourself now after?
I feel like there are some good things that have emerged out of it. Like, I would have never gotten into the recovery community. I wasn't a lifelong alcoholic. Most of the people that I hang out with in the recovery community have been 20, 30 years of, drugs and alcohol. And I mean, their life is shattered, and they've shattered every single person in it. And, and my burn was pretty short. Like, my Xanax alcohol burn was really not that long. And it took me down really, really fast. But when I got into those rooms with people, and it didn't matter if they were gay or straight or black or white or Buddhist or atheist or Christian, and they sit around a room and you start talking about vulnerably talking about your problems, your struggles, your shit, the things that almost took you out, something magical happens. Humans connect. There's a connection that's like as good a spirit thing as I've ever seen anywhere.
Yeah.
Go on. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
In that the beauty and brokenness, kind of stuff is just amazing.
But I hope it doesn't feel like disrespectful or trite for me to be speaking on it in such a somewhat of a light way, because I obviously don't know anything about anything, like I'm like throwing darts at a cosmic wall here, but and so I hope that it doesn't feel disrespectful to your experience of like having a much more established life being broken down, and I'm over here going like I was in a breakup, and it hurt my feelings, and and now I'm like talking about this sort of grand idea that. So I just want to say that like I hope it doesn't feel
no, not at all,
because that's not how I
pain is pain.
Intend it.
When we go through it emotionally, I don't think it's helpful to compare pains to each other. We each go through our own pain and deconstruction, and man, that's where we're at. And it's deep and it's real, and we need to walk through it. And
yeah,
when people love us and listen and not even necessarily give advice, just be present with us is powerful.
Yeah.
And our pain, I think, is something we human beings need to learn to be good at.
Dude, it's so hard. It's so hard. I have found myself. This is something that I'm working on. I am more uncomfortable in your discomfort than I am in my own.
Interesting.
So it leads to this general fear of being honest with people. I try to orchestrate how people feel because I'm afraid of them feeling bad. And so it ends up, dumb little things in the restaurant, it's like, how was your food? And it's like, the food sucks here. You have an uninspired kitchen. It's a terrible dish. I could have made something the exact same, way better at my house, and it cost me triple to buy it here. And I would never want to be rude to a person, but I say, it's great. Thank you so much. It's great. And I know this is like a dumb example, but like it's like this small little prick every time I do it where I'm like, Jake, they're the person that asked for your experience. So if you're not going to answer it honestly, like, why are you even contributing? Like, why are you even doing that? And it's this fear of being like, if I say it's bad, like, how is that server going to respond? How's this worker going to feel?
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Born Again, it's a good song.
Yeah, so let's do this because we're gonna wrap this up here a little bit. I could actually talk for hours about philosophy and
me too,
life
man.
and all that. Like, this is my I can just go for hours with people on this stuff. So
I wasn't helpful. Probably I rambled way.
So no,
too much
I love
there.
it.
I'm sorry
I love
about
it.
that.
And I love the fact that we can talk about it. So let me ask, like, we're gonna go fast now.
Okay. Yep. Pull it.
So you kind of get this song out there and you do some singles, but you pretty much rock it really fast. You catch the attention. I don't know. Do you apply for The Voice? You go on The Voice. You work with Team Adam, and then coming out of The Voice, you did an EP in 2018.
Yep.
You did the Sunday morning EP, which was launching right before COVID, and you were getting ready to do tour of that, and then it just all bloomed.
Yeah.
So tell us, kind of give us like Voice, post Voice, where Jake's at now, what's coming up, what's in your future, and how people can connect with you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I know that's a bunch fast.
That was a lot. The Voice was insane. I'm glad I got to do it. It's very stressful, high stress environment. I carry a lot of embarrassment around my performance on The Voice and how I did on The Voice. I had a goal for myself that I didn't reach. I feel that I was rightfully let go of on the show after giving a performance that I find to be just objectively terrible in front of millions of people, which was weird because I'm a performer at heart. And so like getting with the fact that I'm embarrassed of a thing that I did in front of a lot of people, like very publicly, was super tough. A lot of shame around that.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be the Kansas City boy, I was supposed to be the guy representing Kansas City on The Voice. And then I I got nervous, you know, and I fucked it up, and I got off the show again, rightfully, you know, and all of a sudden it was like, I felt like I disappointed everybody. I felt like I let everybody down, none more than myself, you know, just, it's this feeling of like, man, I'm so much better than that. And that's what I did. And you're going to have to sit with it. Like you got to be with that. So it was weird kind of like getting with
and
that.
you felt like you had disappointed the city even.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt like my church is one of the largest churches in the city. And I felt like
there's relatability there.
Crazy.
There's
Okay. So
relatability.
yuck. I know that feeling. Anyway.
Yeah, it sucks. And it's like, you know, and truthfully, like right after that, I was struggling. I met this girl, and she kind of was, it was like, I went from that stage, you know, it was like feeling like when I was on The Voice, I thought that, oh shit, I've made it. It's all downhill from here, baby. Like Conan up next. Here we go. And it's like, no, you're very wrong about that, you know, especially if you give the performance I gave, you know. And so then it's like, now I'm having to deal with all of this shame around that. I'm working in restaurants, serving people, and I'll be coming up to a table and someone will say, are you Jake Wells? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh my God, you're so awesome. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Can I take that, you know, plate from you, you know, and having all of this embarrassment around just hustling and having a job. And it was like, man, it was so good to be like humbled in that way and be like, yo, whether like I am successful inside of music and that will continue to grow. And like, whether that is there or not, like recognizing that when you hustle, like it's okay to do what you need to do. You're not, anyway, there's like humility aspect there that was really important. I met this girl and she like really took me out, like kind of helped me walk through that. It was really important inside of that. And that was like super meaningful relationship. And then, you know, from there it was kind of finding my way into finding what I wanted to create and why. You know, I'm gonna create music. I have to create music, and so what and why. And you know, luckily being in that relationship and that relationship ending in particular was inspirational in a lot of ways. And so I got to write and yeah, I'm really happy to be where I am. In February of this last year, I started writing custom songs for people. And so
I noticed that on your Instagram.
Yeah. So I write custom songs for people, which is absolutely fascinating.
So like, give me what that, just expound on that just a minute.
Okay. You have a traumatic experience, and you need help emotionally processing it. And it was really important and relevant to you. And so you would like to honor it with a song. So you come to me and you say, Jake, I'd like a song that makes me feel hopeful and is redemptive. I want to find beauty inside of this sort of general feeling that I fucked up and I drank a bunch of alcohol and did Xanax and then I'm all this. And is there any way that you could,
like that?
Lots of people, Fred, lots of people, you're aware. And you say, can you please help? Like, can you create a song like to help me process through this? And I say, absolutely. I ask you a bunch of questions. We go deep. It's a very therapy session. And
Interesting.
So, yeah. So it looks like, hey, I've got a terrible relationship with my father. He was abusive as a child and I am getting married and we have a relationship now after he went through rehab and we've had a relationship, but no song that exists can do it justice for a first dance at our wedding. And so I need a song that can recognize the path that we have been on, the trauma that was created, the fact that we consciously chose to move forward And I need that song so that I can dance with him at my wedding. Can you make that? And I say yes.
So interesting. That's beautiful.
It's incredible. Everyone is walking around with insane amounts of trauma. Everyone is walking around with massive amounts of trauma and sadness and things that they don't know how to reconcile. They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And music creates a space that allows us to interact with emotions that would otherwise feel very dangerous. And it lets us interact and look at those emotions in a very safe place. It gives us the ability to be compassionate towards those emotions, towards the self-hatred,
Right.
and I get to be the conduit that says, hey, I am really good. I am really good at empathizing. I know when you're telling me about your thing, I can go there as much as I can, but I think very well. And I'm very good at taking that experience and saying, what does that sound like? What does it sound like? And then I create that. And it's been incredible.
That's cool. I love that.
So that's what I'm up to now. If you want to connect with me, the best way is through, and I also have a band where we rock out.
Yeah.
We're called the Dirty Magicians.
I saw that.
And so
I love that.
And so a lot of like blues, funk, rock, gospel influence that we just
fun
rock
stuff,
out, dude.
I love it.
So we're playing a show with the Greeting Committee on August 7th. That'll be I think it's called E.H. Young Park. It's this big show, I think, from the city of Riverside is putting. Riverside is putting it on, called Loud and Local. We're creating music as the band. I'm writing all of these songs for individuals with my brother Jordan. We're putting out an album under Jake Wells with all of those songs, hopefully soon, or early fall, hopefully.
Okay.
And if you want to connect, Instagram is probably the most active place that I exist, like on social media.
At Jake Wells.
Yeah, just you can. Yeah, it's if you care, it's at _Jake_Wells_.
Okay.
But if you type in Jake Wells, I'm sure you're
gonna get it.
You can do the work.
Awesome. Well, man, we
really could, man, because I can already tell. Like, we didn't even scratch the surface of my like ludicrous ideas.
Yeah, no.
I saw you holding your breath there while I was. I appreciate that.
That's it's great. I love these conversations.
Oh, man.
Good stuff. Yeah, well, I just want to thank you for coming on Spirituality Adventures and appreciate you sharing part of your life with us. I love the storytelling part of this, and so I really appreciate it. And I think there could be a part 2 these days. I'd love that. So,
and I need to get you connected to my brother as well.
Okay.
Joel. I think you'd really like that awesome. A lot.
All right. Well, thanks everybody to tuning in to Spirituality Adventures, and we will see you next time. This concludes today's episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember to like, share, or subscribe to the social media platform that you're using. And then go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, and make a one-time donation, or you can subscribe monthly and receive our special bonus content. Thanks so much.